While Kane might be discussing the lack of effort from Port's midfield, the wider AFL community is starting to take notice of what we can do. My name's Woody. Jake's got me on to discuss some of the standout stats each week, so let's go over how we stop the power at Adelaide Oval. I want to start things off with who I thought our man of the match was, and for me it has to be Nasiah Wanganeen-Malera. With 1 goal won, 25 disposals, 10 intercept possessions, 8 rebound 50s, and 510 metres gained on 70% kicking efficiency, Naz was near his very best again. And honestly, I was tempted to say McRae too, as he got the most disposals with 28, the most ground ball gets with 11, the most clearances and score involvements with 9, and was equal first with Garcia for pressure acts. Speaking of Garcia, he was our best for centre clearances with 3, second for overall clearances with 7, and was our equal first for tackles with Marshall, Higgins, and Collard with 5. And we'll come back to Collard in a minute, but I want to stay on our midfield for a moment. Kane has been talking about how, on paper, Port's midfield should have beaten ours, and when you look at historical accolades, yeah, maybe. But let's look at some of this year's numbers. I also want to point out that before this match, both St Kilda and Port had been comfortably beaten by potential top 4 teams in Adelaide and Collingwood, and both have had their chance to get big wins over Richmond. So the major difference, in my opinion, is how St Kilda played against Geelong and Port played against Essendon. And I think most fans would agree on the difference of quality between those teams. So, coming into this match, St Kilda had more centre clearances with 35-31 and scores from centre clearance with 30-27. More stoppage clearances 89-73 and scores from just stoppages 89-58 and more points from turnover 170-141. So in general, we just scored more from our opportunities than Port, and while maybe Corns expected Butters to majorly improve Port's scoring, unless he expected him to triple Port's average scores from centre bounce or double their scores just from stoppages, I'm not sure where he expected their extra scoring to come from. If we want to get into it more, the players Kane laid out on AFL.com weren't even who spent the majority of time in the centre bounce in this match, or last, I might add. When comparing midfields, he said McRae, Garcia, Windy, Stocker, and Wilson shouldn't have been able to beat Butters, Horne-Francis, Rosie, Wines, and Drew. So, first up, Wilson didn't attend any centre bounces and only got 2 stoppage clearances. So, while Zach Jones did only get the 1 centre clearance, he did attend 35% of our centre bounces and is probably the better option if you're gonna compare mid-groups. Secondly, let's look at those players and their averages in what I consider to be some of the more important centre mid stats. I'm going to include this week's numbers in the averages as well because it takes a little bit of effort to exclude matches, but I'll have that up and running by next week. But essentially, if we look at the totals, we've had basically even disposals per turnover at 5.58 versus 5.64, but where we've just been better is score involvement percentage. When comparing those players, Port sits at 18.14% and the Saints sit at 27.35%. And these numbers just get better for us if we had Steele over Stocker, where every single metric improves and disposals per turnover goes up to 6.5 and score involvement percentage improves to 28.3%. So all that is to say, the mid matchup was always going to be close if Port couldn't dominate the clearances, of which we averaged 6.7 more while having a positive difference of +8 to Port's -4 against opponents. So what I guess I'm saying is, Kane, David King said you weren't recognising the development of our squad, and I agree. I think Port hasn't been particularly impressive this season, but we've now knocked over 2 of last year's top 4 sides. So when you said this on Fireball in round 1...
There's a language shift at the club though, isn't it? They've finally realised that...
I think it's being real, isn't it? I don't know what you want them to do. Do you want them to just come out and say, oh, no, we're going to charge at the finals? You go, that's just ridiculous.
Do you know what I want them to do?
What do you want them to do?
Not talk about 2023 and playing finals anymore.
And this yesterday...
Congratulations to them. It was gritty and they were too good.
Oh, I think it's more than that. I think you're going unders on the Saints.
What more can I say?
I think we're starting...
They're not good. They're not good.
What do you mean they're not
aren't
good?
But
I'm not worried about mentions. I'm not worried about mentions, right?
Got good young players. Every team does.
But you've got to recognise the coming out of the ashes, right? They got Wanganeen,
Miller,
Miller,
in the ashes.
Wilson.
They played finals 2 years ago. They're not in the ashes.
Nah.
I've got to ask how you can still have us as a bottom 4 side. I think it might be time to reevaluate your power rankings. Finally, let's talk about Collard. Averaging just over 9 disposals, 1.6 goals, and 3.3 tackles, he's proving more than capable at AFL level, and with more experience, hopefully he can continue to go strength to strength. But I want to show a couple of his efforts. In this first play, St Kilda enter the forward 50, the Port players drop the mark, but Collard is front and square to gather the crumb and get the ball out to space where Wood is running past to snap our first goal of the second quarter, 20 minutes in. In this second play, we go down the line, the ball gets past the contest thanks to Zach Jones knocking it forward. Collard and Lockie Jones make chase. Lockie picks it up and shakes off Collard. Before he can get some space and find someone, Collard has closed the distance and gotten a tackle off to pin Lockie Jones for holding the ball via incorrect disposal. In this final play, St Kilda gets the stoppage clearance. Sharman kicks it inside 50 where Lance gets his first contested mark before ultimately going back to slot it and put the game out of Port's reach with 5 minutes to go. So that about sums up my major thoughts for the week. Kane isn't really recognising our development. We've actually got a bit of a next man up thing going on with Stocker coming in for Steele. And yeah, that's about it. If you want to see more of my thoughts, I've got my own channel at Wooden Spoon Data, but I'll be here every week to go over some of the standout Saints stats. By the way, we've got to come up with a name for this thing. So if you've got one, drop them in the comments. I want to thank Jake for having me. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week. Go Saints.